What happens when a perfectly scripted late-night show suddenly loses its rhythm? No punchline, no laughter, just a pause so quiet it travelled across continents. On a night meant to celebrate romance, Jimmy Fallon stopped mid-flow, and the internet did the rest. Live television is built on certainty. Every pause is timed, every reaction anticipated, every smile rehearsed. That is precisely why the moment on The Tonight Show felt so unsettling and so compelling. When Jimmy Fallon briefly lost his rhythm, viewers sensed something rare, a crack in the performance. It wasn't dramatic. There was no visible mistake, no spoken error. Instead, there was hesitation, a fleeting stillness that carried weight precisely because it wasn't designed. In an environment engineered to feel effortless, effort suddenly became visible. And audiences are extraordinarily sensitive to that shift. What made the moment resonate was not confusion, but recognition. Viewers recognized that pause because they have lived it themselves. The second when emotion arrives before language, when composure lags behind feeling. In that brief silence, the host ceased to be a presenter and became unmistakably human. This was not a failure of professionalism. It was an interruption of routine by something unscripted and sincere. And in a media landscape saturated with control, that interruption felt quietly radical. Contrary to online headlines, the romantic scene itself was not provocative. It was restrained, intimate without excess, emotionally grounded rather than sensational. That restraint is exactly why it worked. In a global entertainment climate accustomed to exaggeration, subtlety now stands out. The chemistry between Shukai and Songyun did not demand attention, it earned it. Their interaction relied on presence rather than spectacle, on timing, proximity, and emotional patience. This form of storytelling trusts the audience to feel, not simply react. What viewers responded to was not the act of intimacy, but the emotional honesty surrounding it. The scene carried a softness that contrasted sharply with the pace of late-night television. It slowed the room down. It asked for stillness. And stillness in this context became disarming. The real surprise then was not romance, but how quietly powerful romance can be when it is allowed to exist without explanation. The moment revealed that emotional resonance does not need amplification. Sometimes it only needs space. When stories cross borders, they often carry different emotional grammars. What reads as subtle sincerity in one culture may feel unexpectedly intense in another. This moment became a meeting point for those differences, not through conflict, but through pause. Western late-night television thrives on immediacy. Quick humour, rapid transitions, constant verbal movement. By contrast, much East Asian romantic storytelling values restraint, silence, and emotional accumulation. When these two rhythms collided, the result was not chaos, but recalibration. Viewers around the world interpreted the pause differently. Some saw cultural adjustment, others saw emotional overload. Many simply felt the tension of two storytelling traditions briefly occupying the same space. Importantly, the conversation that followed was not rooted in outrage, but curiosity. This was a moment where audiences were not asking who was right or wrong. They were asking why it felt different and what that difference revealed about their own expectations. In that sense, the pause functioned as a mirror, reflecting how deeply culture shapes our comfort with emotion. Rather than dividing audiences, the moment invited reflection. It reminded viewers that silence is not absence, it is language. With global visibility comes layered responsibility. As attention turned toward the performers involved, discussions naturally expanded beyond the moment itself. Viewers began to consider how artists, particularly women, are perceived when they gain international exposure through emotionally charged scenes. The response revealed a growing maturity in global audiences. While admiration was present, so too was caution. Many viewers expressed a desire to appreciate performance without reducing it to fantasy, to recognize craft without blurring boundaries. This shift matters. What emerged was a conversation about balance, how to celebrate presence without projecting narratives, how to acknowledge emotional impact while respecting professional identity. These discussions signal a broader evolution in audience awareness. Importantly, the focus gradually moved from reaction to artistry. The scene became an entry point, not a conclusion. Viewers began exploring previous works, interviews, and performances, seeking context rather than fixation. In this way, the moment demonstrated that visibility, when handled with grace, can deepen respect rather than diminish it. It showed that audiences are capable of holding admiration and discernment at the same time. Long after the clip stopped circulating, something remained. It wasn't a quote, a joke, or a headline. It was a feeling, a soft echo of recognition. Those are the moments that endure. In a digital environment driven by immediacy, most viral content burns quickly and disappears. This did not. It lingered because it offered no resolution. It left space for thought, for personal interpretation, for memory. The pause did not demand attention, it invited it. And that invitation was accepted by millions across languages and borders. Viewers returned not to be shocked again, but to understand why the moment stayed with them. Perhaps the lasting power lies in its ordinariness. There was no grand statement, no dramatic reveal, just a brief lapse in rhythm that felt profoundly familiar. It reminded audiences that even in highly polished spaces, humanity finds a way through. Ultimately, this was not a story about spectacle. It was a story about stillness, and how, in the right moment, stillness can speak louder than anything else. This wasn't a viral moment built on shock. It was built on vulnerability, cross-cultural curiosity, and the shared language of emotion. And perhaps that's why it travelled so far. If you enjoyed this deeper look into the moments behind the headlines, subscribe to LVT-SHOWBIZ for more global entertainment stories told with care, insight, and heart. Thank you for watching, and don't forget to follow the channel for your next story that lingers long after the screen fades.